The House will come to order. Please join Representative Lynch in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Come on. You got more than that. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile. Representative Amabile. Arndt. Bacon. Baisley. Benavidez. Burnett. Byrd. Bockenfeld. Bradfield. Caraveo. Carver. Catlin. Cutter. Doherty. Duran. Escar. Exum.
Morning, sir.
Froelich.
Morning.
Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Hanks. Herod. Holtorf. Hooten. Jackson. Representative Jackson is excused. Judah. Kennedy. Representative Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Lontine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick.
Here.
McKean. McLaughlin.
Good morning.
Michael St-Genet. I think she's late. Representative Michael St-Genet is excused. Mullica. Representative Mullica is excused. Neville. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks.
Present.
Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Representative Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Representative Titone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow. Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
With 64 present, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Hanks.
Good morning. Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Thursday, March 25th, 2021 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. It is Friday. The ayes clearly have it. The motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. Today is Friday, and we're going to wind down our celebration of National Ag Week. Most of you don't know this, but today is National Spinach Day. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish because I eats my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Go eat your spinach today, ladies and gentlemen.
Oof, I'm not sure what to do with that. Thank you, Representative Holtorf. Okay, any further announcements and introductions? Further announcements and introductions. Going once. Going twice. Okay, it looks like we have a couple. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy Friday, everyone. Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services, we will meet upon adjournment in room 112. Be there or be square.
Representative Hooton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I found this cape in LSB yesterday. I believe it's a woman's cape, but I can see men are quite interested. Oh, good point. You're right. So if this belongs to anyone, you can find it at my desk. So thank you. You have until noon.
Thank you, Representative Hooton. Okay, see no further announcements and introductions. The next order of business on the calendar is third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1167.
House Bill 1167 by Representatives Durain and Will, also Senator Gonzalez and Scott, concerning reentry and construction contracts governing improvements to private real property.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1167 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1167 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 52 aye votes, 12 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1167 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1067.
Good job.
House Bill 1067 by Representatives Kipp and Exum, also Senators Story and Buckner, concerning the National Assessment Test Score as an eligibility criterion for admission to a Colorado institution of higher education.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1067 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1067 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Hooten. Please close the machine. With 42 aye votes, 22 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1067 is adopted. Co-sponsors.
Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors.
Representative Froelich, Ricks, McCormick, and McLaughlin, co-sponsor. Please.
Froelich.
Yeah, Froelich. I got Froelich. Froelich, please. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1160.
House Bill 1160 by Representatives Duran and Soper, also Senators Janal and Quorum, concerning the care of pet animals in the custody of certain pet animal facilities.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1160 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1160 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Catlin, please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 21 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1160 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McCormick, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1138.
House Bill 1138 by Representatives McLaughlin and Catlin, also Senator Heisey, concerning clarifying restrictions on the operation of off-highway vehicles.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1138 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1138 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Hooten, Kip. Please close the machine. With 55 aye votes, 9 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1138 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Exum, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 70.
Senate Bill 70 by Senator Moreno, also Representative Byrd, concerning the authority of a Board of County Commissioners to require the registration of businesses.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 70 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 70 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Kipp. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 70 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. The next order of business on the calendar is General Orders, second reading of bills. Representative Tipper. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Tipper will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, bills will be read by title unless there's a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon the motion of the majority leader. And of course, the quote rule is relaxed. Happy Friday, everybody. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1092.
House Bill 1092 by Representative Williams, also Senators Holbert, concerning the eligibility of a candidate for Lieutenant Governor to be a candidate for another elected office.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1092 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, what we did here is we amended the bill as originally written to allow, or to rather disallow congressional candidates and senatorial candidates. That wasn't the intended purpose of the bill originally, and we wanted to take that out, especially since there could have been a fiscal impact to those districts and those clerks. We also amended it to ensure that if someone who ran simultaneously did run and won both seats, that they would have to indeed go with the lieutenant governor position and not choose. And so that's what we did in the committee report, and I ask that we pass the committee report.
Representative Sandridge. On the bill. Any further discussion on the State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? No! The report passes. To the bill, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I do have another amendment here that I'm just going to go ahead and offer before I actually get to the substance of the bill. So, Madam Chair, I move L003 and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you, Rep. Williams. It's been moved and it's almost properly displayed. All right, go ahead and tell us about the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, this was a very interesting bill to begin with, and the amendment is the product of about the past week of collaborating with other members in the chamber as well as the Secretary of State's office. Currently in the Constitution states that you may only have one candidate committee. However, the Constitution does not prohibit individuals from running simultaneously for different offices in this particular instance that the bill is trying to do. So, the safest constitutional way to make this work was to essentially eliminate or have that candidate eliminate the other lower office candidate committee. So they can still be a candidate for that office, but they can no longer expend or receive contributions in hard dollars for that campaign. And that is a trade-off of being able to run simultaneously, and it's constitutionally clean, and there's other ancillary benefits that go along with it. But the bottom line is that in order for this to happen and occur, before the lieutenant governor nominee accepts the nomination, they have a certain period of time by which they can close out that other campaign committee and ensure that that we're doing things constitutionally and in accordance with campaign finance law. So I would ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Sanders, did you want to speak to the amendment? Or no, is he on the bill? Anybody, any discussion, further discussion on Amendment L003? Seeing none, question for us is the adoption of L003. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? No! L003 passes. Okay, back to the bill. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so to the bill itself. Members, we had a very good conversation with the committee. There was no opposition to this bill from witnesses in committee. And the whole purpose of this bill was to allow for this possibility of simultaneously running in this one instance with the lieutenant governor. Right now, the lieutenant governor office is the only statewide office that does not, that you can't run independently. So for instance, if I wanted to run for Secretary of State, State Treasurer, so on and so forth, I can simply go announce my candidacy, create a campaign finance committee, and then I'm off to the races. Lieutenant Governor, that's a different prospect entirely. How we select the nominee is basically done by the winner of the gubernatorial races in their primaries. So the major party candidates in those races are the ones who get to select their running mate. And I want to go ahead and remind everyone back in 2008 on the federal level when then Senator Barack Obama, who went on to become president, wanted to select his running mate, he then chose Senator Joe Biden. In that instance, Joe Biden was able to not only run for United States Senator, but also simultaneously run as the vice presidential nominee for his party's ticket. In 2012, on the Republican side, we had Mitt Romney, who was our presidential nominee. He chose then Congressman Paul Ryan. And in that instance, they too were also allowed the ability for Congressman Ryan to run simultaneously, not only for Congress, but also as the GOP's vice presidential nominee. And the reason I think that this is a way forward is because it allows our gubernatorial nominees, regardless of their party, to select from the widest pool of applicants as possible. There are a number of qualified people in this building who right off the bat are not going to be considered as a running mate because they are in fact running for re-election in some other office at the same time as the gubernatorial nominee. So that really only allows those nominees to maybe in this building, for instance, go to senators that might be midterm and consider those people. Ultimately, what this will allow is it will allow for those nominees to select people that are highly qualified potentially and in essence strengthen their tickets so that they can put their best foot forward in trying to make their case to the voters. This allows for more choice, it allows for more flexibility, and ultimately I think it serves the people of Colorado the best if we can ensure that these individuals are the best of the best. So please vote yes on the bill.
Thank you. Representative Benavides, I think, was first. No, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm as surprised as all of you to find myself up here speaking in support of a Dave Williams bill. But just kidding. I think this is a pretty reasonable idea. When I saw this bill come across, there were a couple issues in the initial bill. But the overall principle is something I really appreciated, that it is kind of a strange situation that if you're a state senator and you're in the middle of your 4-year term, there's nothing to stop the governor from appointing you to be the lieutenant governor nominee. It's an easy choice to make. But if you're a state senator who's on the ballot that year, or if you're a state representative at any point in time, it forces you to make a tough choice of potentially giving up your House seat when you don't know whether you're actually going to win the governor's race or the lieutenant governor's race. So I think this is a pretty reasonable idea. There were a few issues in the introduced bill, and I really appreciate that Rep. Williams circulated those with me, circulated those with the Secretary of State's office, got some good feedback, and has run 2 amendments in committee and 1 amendment on the floor to address those issues. So with his amendments, I'm in support of the bill and really appreciate his efforts. Thank you, Rep. Williams.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question is, so the lieutenant governor is picked usually in late summer. And from that point forward, the gubernatorial candidate, you would assume, would want a lieutenant governor to run hand in hand, fully invested in winning the governor's office, winning the governor's mansion. So I'm just wondering when this would ever happen, because if I was running for governor, which of course I'm not, but if I was, I would want my lieutenant governor candidate to be fully on board and committed to that campaign, not running for, say, Secretary of State or Treasurer or State Senate or a county commissioner or something like that. So I suppose help me out with that conundrum.
Representative Williams, you look good on that side of the aisle. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I want to be part of an organization that would have me as a member. To answer the question from my esteemed colleague from Highlands Ranch, that's ultimately a question that should be decided by the voter. It's a political question that I think the voters are more than capable of making. There was this kind of tension, there was this kind of debate during the 2008 race when then Senator Joe Biden was running for re-election in his home state against the challenger. The challenger raised these questions, and ultimately the voters said that it wasn't an issue for them, and they decided to re-elect in that race Joe Biden. And when he ascended to the vice presidency, a vacancy occurred, and then the process played out. So I don't think, as a matter of public policy, we should be restraining or preventing our nominees from being able to, again, select the most qualified individuals that they can. And that's why I would urge a yes vote.
Thank you. Representative Sandrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's an honor to serve with you.
And with you. It's an honor to serve with you, and I'm sorry, I've now twice ignored you. I apologize.
Unbelievable. So, I know. So, I stand in support of this bill. Bill, I don't think it's really that controversial. I did some research, and a lot of states do this. It does open up the candidacy. We don't want people deciding not to run for, or not to accept the nomination, or however it's worded, to be a lieutenant governor, to run for that when they currently hold a different position or are running for a different position. We don't want to put candidates in that position, and let's let the voters decide too. If the voters want to, it just frees up the voters to decide. We don't want to limit candidates, and so I'm in favor of anything that opens up the candidacy and lets voters decide. So, like I said, I did some research. It really doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican state. It seems like they've accepted this, and I think it benefits everyone. Not too controversial, so I stand in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I know we've been joking a lot about this bill, but I think this bill is very serious. And I'm here in opposition to the bill. I think that this plays right into the stereotype of politicians, of all of the people like us, that we are just here for the position, for the notoriety, for the next election. And that is not what we should be about. If honestly, I'm here to represent my constituents. And it's a difficult decision. All of us have choices out there. If we want to represent our constituents or people in the state, We get to make the choice of how we can best be served and serve the people. It's not a game of playing the odds. Well, I'll try 2 and hopefully I'll be successful at 1. That is not what this work that we do should ever be about. It should be about the role we play for our constituents, whoever they are. And if we can't decide, we feel our skills, our roots are better served in a position, and we just want to see which one we get elected to, if at all. And even if we were successful and we got elected to both of them, both offices that we choose, that then causes a second election for local governments in some positions. You know, if you run for county commissioner and you win lieutenant governor, then they have to run a whole nother election. This is a serious bill that imposes a lot of requirements on the people we represent. And I think it's not a good position for us to take, to say, we're going to play the odds, we're going to run for what we can. This has never been in our history, and this is a wrong step for us to take. So I would hope you'd oppose the bill.
Representative Sanders, I think you wanted to comment to that. Or Representative Herod?
Go ahead. Do you want to go?
Representative Herod. So polite.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I do want to make a point about the fact that apparently we need a new State Affairs chair if they were to allow a Williams bill to make it out of the Kill Committee that I know was intentionally assigned because that's Williams' favorite place to be. But I support the bill because I do believe in the arguments that were spoken by my colleagues earlier that it is up to the people to decide if they want to support that candidate. It's up to that governor to decide, or potential governor to decide, if they want a running mate who has a current position. But make no mistake, members, there are people who are running for different offices while they hold offices, especially at the city level. You can run for mayor and still be a state representative. You can run for city council or school board and still be a state representative. So long as your cycle doesn't fall on the 2-year cycle, that doesn't make sense. And so if someone wants to do this, if the voters want to support it, if that governor chooses to have a running mate who's going to be extremely busy half of the year, that's up to them. I should note, though, that I would not be selecting someone like a Representative Williams to be my running mate. However, I believe the option should be on the table, and I look forward to the day where we can have a conversation about that ticket. So thank you, members. I ask for a yes vote on the bill. Unity, yeah. Right on.
Does he want? Rep. Sandridge, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I completely agree with Representative Benavides' sentiment. When these people run for 2 seats at the same time, it just gives me a bad taste in my mouth. And it does. It makes me feel like, hey, we're just looking for the next step up. We're looking for the next job. In a way, that's really what it is. And it's just more career politician. I digress. But I think, I can't believe I have gum in my mouth. But let the voters decide. That's my view. And I'm going to think negatively when I vote on people who are running for 2 spots at one time. But I completely agree with their sentiment. I just think let the voters decide at the end of the day. Thank you.
Rep. Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. When this bill was originally talked about, I think I started leading the I Don't Care caucus on this bill. We've often give Dave Williams like a lot of grief in our little office shared area because we really don't care. And we're like, dude, why are you spending so much time on an issue no one cares about? But then actually in committee, I think it was Representative Mobley brought up some good points about vacancies. And then I went from I don't care to like I slightly care, because if you actually have a vacancy that's created after a nomination process has already happened, many state representative, state senator vacancy bylaw committees have a smaller committee at that point in time. So you're talking about a committee that might be 9 people picking that committee, where if you actually have that vacancy occur after that point, typically there's a larger vacancy process where more people get a weigh in with maybe all the PCPs. And so I've seen that happen in the past. You know, Representative Ransom was appointed one of those. It was a special vacancy, and I prefer the larger ones. And so in that situation, I found one reason that moved me from the completely I don't care into the I care slightly. So for that reason, I'm a yes.
Representative Holturf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Representative Kennedy, for your great leadership on the State Affairs Committee. Thank you for supporting this bill. I will tell you that Vacancy Committee, when they have to form and make selections, is very disruptive to that particular district, that particular committee. As you know, I came in through a vacancy committee. My situation was different. There was over 85 people that were there and voted, and you had to have a supermajority to be selected. But when you only have a handful of people sitting in a closed room, and then a decision is made, that's what questions politics. That's what makes voters and citizens at large question the procedure. So if I understand this correctly, this could potentially take that and resolve that issue. I think that's very important. And I also agree that the voters need to decide. If a candidate wants to multitask, I think that should be that candidate's prerogative. And oh, by the way, if I understand it correctly, the governor selects his or her running mate. Of course, there is people that are talking to the governor candidate asking for that particular opportunity. But the governor makes that selection. And then that is a game changer for that individual. And I think this bill, if that selection is made from somebody that's holding current office, this bill remedies that, as I understand it. That's a good thing. There's goodness in this bill for the state of Colorado, and I'm glad that people on both sides of the aisle recognize this. I also am very happy to hear about the amendments and the bipartisanship that was worked out to solve any contentious issues. That is goodness. So, today, we have a good bill that I support and encourage everyone else to support as we move forward to solve the problems of this state.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first rise in support of Representative Kennedy remaining as the chair of the State Affairs Committee because I, for one, am against death and killing. And so if we can turn something from a kill committee to a life committee, I say that's a win. So thank you, Representative Kennedy. Actually, when I first heard about this bill, I pushed back on Dave and suggested that the lieutenant governor's position should be its own position, that people should be able to run for it as a position itself. But in lieu of that option, I rise also in support of the proposal he has presented. Thank you.
A division has been called.
Division. It's fun to see it from that side.
Representative Baisley, do you want to come down or do division from up there? Thank you. And for the members that are joining us remotely, Representative McLaughlin and Ricks, if you want to participate in the division vote, you need to turn your microphone or your screens on when that happens. The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 92, excuse me. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of House Bill 1092, please stand and remain standing, or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. The motion passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 26.
Senate Bill 26 by Senator Moreno, also Representative Ortiz, concerning the eligibility of discharged LGBT veterans for specified state benefits.
Representative Ortiz.
All right, Madam Chair, it's an honor to serve with you.
And also with
I move SB 21026 and the committee report.
to the committee report.
All right, just going to speak briefly to it. Essentially what we did in committee was kind of tighten our grouping to make sure that we are applying this bill with surgical precision in what we're trying to accomplish here. So, now speaking to the bill. There are many ways to serve your community, your state, your country. But there are very few vocations that have you swear an oath to a document, a set of values, ideals, and beliefs that should apply to every American equally. That you would take your one life, your only life that you have, as a brother, a sister, a son or daughter, a father and mother, that one life that so many love, depend on, and ultimately swear that you will lay it down for those ideals and ensuring that they apply to all. Total strangers. Some you might relate to and agree with, even more you may not. That's why it's a sacred vocation to me. You're grouped together with total strangers from all walks of life, from Christian, Jewish, and Muslim in faith, those with no religion, from rural areas like my colleague and brother veteran from Eastern Colorado, from suburban areas like myself, urban areas, all ethnicities, migrants, foreign-born, American-born, and yes, those of us from the LGBTQ+ community. That call to serve, the desire to be a part of something much larger than yourself, having that servant's heart hits all of us, and our country is made better for it. Even if, at least in moments of our history as a nation, even if that country doesn't necessarily love you back. We've seen it throughout history with our black soldiers from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to both world wars. Our AAPI community, Asian American Pacific Islander community. I can't help but think of those internment camps during World War II. Yet as we as a nation, when we were putting their families in camps, over 33,000 Japanese Americans fought in World War II. You want to talk about a clear demonstration of love of country? And I'm going to ask all of you and all of my peers a question right now and see if you know the answer to this. What U.S. military unit is the most decorated in American history for its size and length of service? That's going to be the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, a segregated Japanese-American unit during World War II. Totaling about 18,000 men, they received over 4,000 Purple Hearts, 4,000 Bronze Stars, 560 Silver Stars, 21 Medals of Honor, and 7 Presidential Unit citations. And yes, there have been LGBTQ+ service members since the founding of this nation. We've served faithfully for a nation we've loved, even when it wouldn't love us back if it found out who we were. That is until Don't Ask, Don't Tell was removed in 2011, and more recently when the transgender service ban was finally removed. One of the aspects I love and miss most about the military is the team. The men and women I had the privilege of serving with. They became like family. Well, with decades, plural, unprecedented in our nation's history, with decades of combat, constant training, and multiple deployments, there is a bond that runs stronger than family in some ways. Can you imagine having to keep one of the biggest parts of yourself a secret from that family? And if it was found out, that you're being ripped away from that family and that vocation you love. Well, that's why I'm humbly presenting SB 21026, the Restoration of Honor Act, so that in a more responsive and efficient way, we can begin to right some of that wrong here in the state of Colorado. The bottom line of what this bill does is it provides some state veteran benefits to those who served in the military but were discharged in a manner other than honorable, not including dishonorable, due to sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, that limits their access to state veteran benefits. So what state benefits are we going to restore? They may be awarded a high school diploma. They can receive a Teach Colorado grant, eligible for in-state tuition, may be buried at Home Lake Veteran Cemetery, may be interred by a county, may be buried in a state-purchased veteran subdivision in a cemetery, may be appointed as a county veteran service officer, must receive preference in the municipal firefighter civil service exam, may purchase up to 5 years of military service credit in a municipal fire department or police department pension plan, may test out of hunter safety course, access to some military veterans' license plates. So let me be clear about what this bill does not do. It does not change your official discharge status. That process must be done at the federal level. And that can be overly burdensome and cumbersome, especially for our older era veterans who were forced to feel so much shame that all many wanted to do was forget and move on. I would be remiss if I didn't thank some of my Republican colleagues for working with me, being the Superior Chamber here in the House. As you all already know, we had to put a little polish on the language of the bill, and to that end, I move Amendment L005.
Thank you, Representative Ortiz. Before we get to that, we actually need to pass the committee report, unless the amendment is to the committee report.
No, Madam Chair, L005 isn't.
Okay. The question before the House is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The committee report passes. So we're back to the bill, and what we have, I believe, is Amendment L001.
I do. Yeah, thank you.
Which has been moved. And give us a second to get it displayed.
You want the whole thing? Okay. Great. Madam Chair, I move Amendment L005 and ask that it be displayed.
Okay, thank you. Amendment L005 has been moved and is displayed. Please tell us about the amendment.
Okay. Basically what this amendment does is it provides greater clarity because that darned Oxford comma was causing a lot of confusion. So we went ahead and added gender modifier in front of both identity and expression. So that's part of what it does. The other thing we wanted to do was, again, to tighten who we are trying to help here in this bill and make sure that the only reason that you're being considered is because you were drummed out for simply being a part of the LGBTQ+ community. So here's an example. If you were fraternizing or if you slept with the commander's spouse, whether you're straight or a part of the LGBTQ plus community, you still should be subject to UCMJ. So that's all this amendment does.
Thank you. Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment, and with this amendment am supportive of the bill. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, if you haven't been in the military, the military code regulates many, many aspects of your life, all focused on accomplishing the mission, maintaining good order and discipline. And so, as Representative Ortiz mentioned, fraternization, relationships within the ranks, relationships with spouses of those in the ranks, to the extent that it impacts good order and discipline. These are all part and parcel of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and Regulations. And the importance of this amendment is that it focuses this bill on those who otherwise served their country honorably. Their service was honorable. Their service was consistent with the UCMJ and the Code of Conduct. And where their discharge was not, they were not given an honorable discharge simply because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And that's what this amendment clarifies. And so I support the amendment, and with the amendment, support the bill.
Thank you, Representative Carver. Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Holtorf.
Stay up here, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the bill sponsor. I understand that this is a very difficult topic. I also understand the intent of the bill sponsors, and I do respect that. I will tell you that having served many years in the military as a detachment commander, a company commander several times, a battalion commander, having worked on battalion staff as a battalion adjutant, which handles all administrative actions for that battalion, and a brigade adjutant that handles all administrative actions for a brigade. I am very familiar, probably more than I'd like to admit, in the process and application of UCMJ as it applies to discharge and service. So I want to take a little time and talk about this, but before I do that, I want to thank our bill sponsor for careful and conscious consideration in the application of this amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is good, bipartisan, legislative communication and seeking to understand. This bill sponsor did not stonewall in any way or try to have righteous indignation and say, no, we're not having this. He listened, and this is a good amendment which I support right here. I want to now talk a little bit about classification of discharge. Most people know that the Uniform Code of Military Justice is comparable to not only United States Code, but also Colorado Revised Statute. It is long-standing, it is historical, it is in-depth, and it covers almost every facet of military service. In every service. And it's uniformly applied across all services. The basis for determination of discharge is a command decision that is processed and under the advisory role of the Judge Advocate General. This is a very deliberate, thoughtful process. Now, I will tell you, in many cases, as I served. Depending on the severity of the criminal act or the ill-disciplined act, I tried to, and many other commanders tried to have the benefit of considering the soldier during his civilian life and the impacts of discharge during that time. So the classification of discharge, be it honorable, other than honorable, general discharge, bad conduct discharge, or dishonorable discharge in that order from least severe to most severe. Of course, everybody wants the honorable discharge, but in these cases, UCMJ and the Judge Advocate General Corps cannot allow the honorable classification because the JAG Corps has the responsibility of not promulgating, that's a command issue, but advising and protecting the integrity of UCMJ. Something that my representative from Colorado Springs spent a lot of time in her career protecting UCMJ as it applied to the United States Air Force. This is really serious stuff. As the bill sponsor said, the Department of Defense does have provisions for record corrections through a process of the Board of Corrections, both while you're in service or after you've been discharged or retired from service. And it is also a process that follows UCMJ under the direction of the DoD. Now, here's where I have a little problem with the bill and the bill title. Oh, we're on the amendment. Okay. Thank you for your leadership, Madam Majority Leader. And Assistant Majority Leader. Did I get that right? Yes. Just want to make sure. I got it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for the leadership. So, to the amendment. This amendment is, in fact, a compromise, because I'm very concerned with what my colleague from El Paso County stated. Oftentimes, there is misconduct, and it is egregious. And I will tell you, in my service overseas, there are times when sexual assault, sexual harassment and sexual assault, unfortunately, and the most prevalent, and I'm not going to mention any theaters or any overseas tours, but the most prevalent sexual harassment and sexual assault is actually male on male. Male on male. I've seen it. I've had to adjudicate it. I've had to process it. Now, in the military, general orders are given. And general orders must be followed. Because when you stop following orders, you disrupt the good order and discipline of the military and can very negatively affect the mission or the mission sets. Because many of them are very difficult. Many of them involve sacrifice, and in combat, most of them involve sacrificing your life for the mission. So general orders and policies promulgated by commanders are the foundation of our military. We cannot, nor should we, in any body, in state government or in federal government, in my opinion, try to erode or change what the Uniform Code of Military Justice stands for, what the JAG Corps defends, and what commanders promulgate in their role when they take the oath of command. For those of you that have never done that, it's one of the most difficult jobs you'll ever have as a commander, because you deal with everything in that command, every issue, including personnel issues and including violations of command policy, of general orders, or of the United States Code of Military Justice. This is very serious. Now, if I understand this amendment here addresses, and I'd ask for the bill sponsor to clarify, that if a soldier had an expression and was improperly subject to targeted UCMJ, then this particular statute would apply. And I served for 29 years under 5 presidents. And presidential and DOD policies changed in those 5 years. We started out where homosexual conduct was illegal under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Then we transitioned to what I call the Great Compromise. I know this is hard stuff to talk about. I apologize, but I'm going to talk about it. We had the Great Compromise within the DOD under President Clinton that was don't ask, don't tell. That was the Great Compromise. And then under President Obama, it was changed because the Commander-in-Chief ordered the change. To those individuals could serve freely and openly. But during your time of service, the expectation for all service members is that you will follow general orders. You will follow command policy and command directives. You will follow the UCMJ, as is written at the time of the service. Not before, not during, or certainly not after, if the conditions change. I believe, and I'm going to ask the bill sponsor to talk about this, that this says if you were improperly charged, that the state of Colorado will allow you to qualify for certain benefits. But I will tell you, and here is my biggest issue, ladies and gentlemen, if someone of their own volition, of their own desire, of their own will, willfully violated command directives, general orders, or UCMJ, knowing the rules, because of ill discipline, ill will, or their personal beliefs, then I don't believe that they should have the benefit of this legislation. They don't deserve it. Now, I don't know how this bill addresses that, and that's a concern. If you willfully violate your general orders, then you're not honorable. You're not serving honorably. And that's where I have my biggest concern. I'm going to yield to the bill sponsor at this time to help me address some of those issues.
Just a reminder, we're still on the amendment L005. Representative Ortiz, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a good amendment, as stated by Representative Holtorf at the very beginning of his comments, and as stated by Representative Carver, who was a JAG officer in the military directly working with UCMJ. I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you. Any further discussion on amendment L005? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Back to the bill. Question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 26. See, Representative Geithner. Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assistant Minority Leader Geithner.
Thanks.
This is my
Thank
first
you.
time.
I appreciate the amendment being added to the bill. I think it does add a necessary piece of clarity. And so I rise in support of the bill. I've got 16 years. I'm still in the reserves. And I've served active duty, Guard, reserves, overseas, stateside, changed MOSs a couple of times. And I don't care who you are. If you're willing to raise your hand, man a post, take a weapon, and defend this great nation, then you fully deserve as long as you haven't violated other sections of UCMJ, which we've basically just talked about, then absolutely I believe that you're deserving of the honors bestowed upon you. And hopefully there are very few in Colorado that were negatively impacted that this bill hopes to correct. And so I'm glad to see it here. I thank the sponsor for bringing the bill, and I will be a happy yes on this bill.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 26? Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the sponsor for the amendments. I think the bill gets to a much, much better place. I still do have concerns just because UCMJ is incredibly complex. I actually chaptered over 60 people out of the Army when I was a commander, and UCMJ a lot of times is in addition to civilian law, and so it gets very complex, and so a lot of times I had to make a decision to maybe chapter under a different section in UCMJ than what could have been actually being prosecuted in civilian law at times. And so sometimes there's a discharge that doesn't reflect the whole picture that we're looking at here just in UCMJ, because I didn't want to look like we were doing double jeopardy and doing two types of prosecutions against someone at the same time. But all that said, I mean, I think the bill is in an incredibly much better place, and it may help some folks. And so just thank you for the amendments.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a good amendment, and I thank you for that. It focuses it pretty well. I do have some concerns with the bill. I'd really like to have a little clarification on that. First question would be, I don't think that really affects that very many people in Colorado. But that aside, my concern focuses a lot more on what we're doing and the approach that we're doing. You're codifying into state law a new category of veteran, an LGBTQ veteran. In order to get that, you've outlined a very comprehensive and administrative process to get there, which very much parallels the exact same process that is used by the services, by each of the service secretaries, to upgrade discharges. So my question is, why would you want to codify a separate category in state law when using the same parallel process, you could upgrade the discharge? The services have been upgrading these discharges now for years. That process has been in place for decades, and they're moving forward with it. So I'll leave you those questions, and I'm still somewhat rather concerned with the bill on that basis.
Representative Hanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I would echo some of what Representative Neville indicated here in the double jeopardy elements of some discharges that are not recorded, and some of the other aspects of a discharge that may not be seen just because the military is trying to look judicious and reserved in the process. That is a significant consideration. Representative Pico's comments about having another, what's the word I'm looking for? Having another version, another type of discharge is one of the reasons I voted against this in committee, and I wanted to bring that forward. And what I said in committee, I'll say again here, since the world formed great armies, since Alexander the Great and before, no doubt there have been hundreds of thousands, maybe millions over the course of history, LGBT soldiers that performed honorably. I'm sure I served with many in my 32 years. I know for a fact I did. And they were good men and women. So it really isn't an issue of having any bias against anybody's sexual preference. I think most of the military probably doesn't care what people do in their sexual lives. But this bothered me. I was concerned about having an LGBT veteran discharge status. It just adding another layer to it, and it seems like it ought to be a federal issue to be resolved, and I think we should work towards that That being said, thanks for bringing the amendment and for the discussion that it, or the bill is what I meant to say. And thanks for bringing it forward.
Representative Tone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to just thank Representative Ortiz for bringing this bill. The LGBT caucus is a pretty large caucus compared to a lot of other states. And, you know, it wasn't until Representative Ortiz came along and brought that intersectionality of having his military service here in the building that it brought this issue to our attention. Because the LGBT caucus has been around a while and we did not tackle this issue. We did not understand this. And it was the expertise of Representative Ortiz living that experience that brought this here. So I appreciate the bill. People who serve honorably in the military should get all of the benefits that they deserve. And I urge a yes vote on the bill.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This must be a day full of bipartisanship because I'm going to say something that, well, I normally wouldn't say. And I agree with the Assistant Minority Leader's comments here in the well about this bill. Truly want to thank Representative Ortiz for bringing this bill forward. And I think it's way past time that we correct this. Anybody who wants to stand up and serve for this country and fight for this country should be treated equally. So thank you again for bringing this bill, and I will definitely be a yes vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 26? Seeing none, question. Oh, Representative Bockenfeld.
It's an honor to serve with you, Madam Chairman.
And also with you. I feel like
I sit on the House State Affairs Committee. I voted in support of this bill for the reasons that were articulated by the House Assistant Minority Leader and the Majority Leader. And I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Ortiz, for bringing this bill forward. I have a lot of family, friends, and neighbors who serve, and this is a good bill for everyone, and making sure that the resources and disabilities are moving forward for the people. So thank you very much, and you have my support.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 26? Seeing none, question 4 is the adoption of Senate Bill 26. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 26 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1193.
House Bill 1193 by Representative Gray, also Senator Priola, concerning consumer protection for acts related to a supplemental restraint system.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1193.
The bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, House Bill 1193 makes it illegal to sell or distribute counterfeit airbags. And that might sound like an esoteric problem, and it kind of is. But there are folks who make money by selling airbags to folks when they need them replaced that aren't actually airbags. They may just be a bag full of styrofoam or things that are designed to explode but not inflate and help anyone. And what that means is that you got folks driving around thinking that they have safety for themselves and their family, and they don't have safety for themselves and their family because they're driving around with fake airbags. Now, the problem with, the fake airbags are cheaper than real ones, and so it's people trying to make a quick buck by shortcutting their duty to install certified airbag and safety equipment in vehicles when they service them. These laws exist already in the majority of states in this country, and we just like to bring us up to date and make sure that we're protecting our drivers and their families with proper safety mechanisms, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1193? Seeing none, question 4 is the adoption of House Bill 1193. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1112.
House Bill 1112 by Representatives Snyder and Bradfield, also Senator Lee, concerning authorization for a school district to establish a scholarship program for school district graduates using the school district's locally received money.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I can't tell you what an extreme honor it is to serve with you.
You can keep telling me. Yes, it's an honor to serve with you too. Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Let me move the bill and the
Yes.
committee report.
I would like to move House Bill 21-1112 as amended
And the Education Committee report.
and the Education Committee report.
Thank you, Representative. To the education report.
Can I do that or no?
No, go ahead.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you. Okay, so we did take an amendment in Education Committee. It basically did two things. One, we had got a request from CU to clarify some language, making sure that all higher ed institutions are eligible for this program. And the second part of that amendment removed the reporting requirements to the Department of Education, which also then removed the fiscal note. So no appropriation is now required for House Bill 1112. And with that, I ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the education report? Question 4 says the adoption of the education report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The report passes. Back to the bill. Representative Snyder. Bradfield. Representative Bradfield.
Okay, I think you've heard this before, but our bill is a very simple bill. It allows the school district to set up a scholarship program, especially for their low-income students to attend a higher institution of learning with the tuition assistance, and it'd be assistance for tuition, books, supplies, and transportation. This bill has been requested by the school district that I spent more than 20 years working for, and I am in favor of this, and I think the nuances is something that Representative Snyder can share with you now.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you. Yeah, so as my co-prime said, this has been a very successful program down in Harrison D2 School District with Pikes Peak Community College, and they've been relying on gifts, grants, and donations. And it's a program that's very similar in aspects to the Daniels Fund and what they do up here in Denver. And the Ascent program that the state funds is really what this is going to allow local districts to do. So it only really adding in the ability of a school district to ask voters if they could use mill levy money, whether an override or an increase, this being one of the eligible uses for that mill levy money. So it's a total opt-in, there's no mandate, and I hope that a lot of districts will give it a serious look, and I'm sure some will take advantage of this. So with that, I ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you despite your Starbucks.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Members, I rise in strong support of this bill. We heard it in Education Committee. Frankly, it's a great bill. It, first of all, honors local control, allows school districts the flexibility to do what they need to do at the local level in order to educate their students in an individual way. The other thing that I like about this is that this empowers parents and families directly and puts money in their hand to take them to wherever they want to go after the K-12 education system. And it's also flexible. If you take a look at the language, we're not just talking about kids who graduate specifically from the district. We're talking about kids who also get high school equivalencies. And I think this is something that's important and something that many of us are passionate about. There are a lot of kids that don't thrive in a traditional K-12 academic environment, but may want to go on and pursue something like a career in technical, pipe fitting, diesel mechanic, carpentry, the list goes on and on. And I think that this language is so broad and permissive that it allows for this scholarship program, frankly, to help those kids go on to a lucrative career and get the education that's right-sized for them. So, you know, I couldn't have been more happy with this bill being brought forward. I do think it is great because it doesn't allow for, you know, current mill levy dollars to be used for this. So if a district were to utilize this, they would have to go to their voters, get explicit approval, but it has all the local control aspects. And I just think it really honors the spirit of school choice, which is so prevalent here in Colorado. So I rise in strong support and encourage everybody else to do the same.
Thank you, Representative. And I just wanted to show you my coffee is actually Atlas coffee. Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, members, I think I was the only no vote. I can't remember how Rep. Bays, I think I was the only no vote. And I just kind of wanted to come up here and take a moment and share with you some of my thoughts. I'm a little conflicted, honestly, and this doesn't happen, I feel, that often for me, but it has happened on this bill. And so I'll start off by saying I think you should vote your conscience. I can see some good qualities, and I can see some areas of concern. And I'll start off with the concern that I have. And that really has to do with the idea around, and I do appreciate the language that's in there. Let me get the language specifically. So on page 2 of the bill, as introduced, line 10, the sentence that actually starts on line 9, it says, "The scholarship must be funded from additional mill levy revenue that is approved." And so I really like that word approved, because I did have some concern coming into the bill that existing mill levy could potentially be used for the purposes of establishing a scholarship. But I think with the word approved, I think what we're saying there, and I think we kind of fleshed this out in committee, is that if you're going to incorporate this theme into a ballot measure to seek additional mills, that must be a part of what is otherwise included. Now, I guess it could just be a mill levy increase solely for this purpose. It could be a mill levy increase solely for deferred maintenance, capital improvement projects, teacher salaries, however the school district wants to craft it, and then maybe they could tack this on. But the concern that I have is if there is a district that is struggling, and we have districts that, economically are not necessarily in parity with other districts, where they really do struggle with, managing the checkbook at that kitchen table. If this might just be the incentive to get them to a yes, where otherwise they have struggled in the past. So that's the concern that I have with the bill, is that it could just, I've kind of described it as basically the sprinkles on the sundae, if you will. So now let me talk about some of the quality that I see in this, the aspect of the bill that I like. And so this still has got me in this place, and that's why I say vote your conscience at this point. And that is that I like the flexibility that this offers, because there is no limitation in the bill in terms of how those tax dollars are spent based on the scholarship provided. And so the point I'm trying to get at is it may be a private institution that these tax dollars would then go to. And so whether that's a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution, a vocational school, I think those are all great things. But it also does bring in a quality of, could it be a private Christian university? Could it be, you name it? And I am encouraged to some aspect, because I do see a quality of a voucher type quality to this bill. And so I like the direction that I think this bill goes. So I'm just kind of in a quandary. I want to make sure that I'm looking at, I've had it described to me this way by a couple of constituents. Your state government should protect you from your federal government. Your local government should protect you from your state government, and so on and so forth. But by looking at this as basically the sprinkles on top, could it be seen as an incentive to run a mill levy and therefore increase taxes? But then I also like the voucher type quality aspect of this bill. And so with that, members, I say vote your conscience. I wanted to bring that to the floor and make sure that the members of the body understood why I was the only no vote coming out of committee. Is just I really haven't made up my mind between those two aspects of the bill, whether that's the incentivizing of a tax or just the voucher quality of the bill. So I will step out of the well, but I do encourage you to vote your conscience.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question for us is the adoption of House Bill 1112. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 1112 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1169.
House Bill 1169 by Representatives Van Bever and Ortiz concerning the prohibition of discrimination against a potential organ transplant recipient based solely on the person's disability.
Representative Van Bever.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 211169 concerns the prohibition of discrimination against a potential organ transplant recipient based solely on their physical or IDD disability.
And Representative Van Bever, will you move the bill first?
I'm so sorry. I move Bill House 211169.
Thank you.
There we go. And this bill ensures that people with disabilities are not discriminated against when it comes to organ transplants, but gives them an effective way to challenge discrimination when and where it happens, providing equality for all under the law. What's equally important about this bill is what it doesn't do. It does not affect federal legislation, nor will it be used to require a medically inappropriate transplant. Nor is it a carte blanche consideration that violates proper medical protocols in considering a transplant.
Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really want to thank the bill's sponsor, the prime sponsor, Representative Van Bever. She was a joy to work with. I really appreciate her allowing me to work with her on this bill. Bottom line of what's happening here is there is discrimination that happens. As anyone knows that has been on a donor transplant list, timing is everything. Part of the reason why we thought that this bill needed to happen was because even though there are some protections in federal ADA, it is cumbersome to prosecute the case, and it takes time, precious time that children with IDD and people like myself that live with a disability do not have. So in the interest of local control and making sure we are making things more equitable and just, we're bringing this bill forward. I want to kind of echo one of the points that Representative Van Bever brought forward. We really don't want the disability to be a consideration, but let's say, for example, there's an alternate universe where Representative Ortiz, as a wheelchair user, is an alcoholic, then that should be considered. That should be a disqualifying factor for a liver. But me being in a wheelchair should not be a disqualifying factor. So for all those reasons and more, I thank this bill sponsor for bringing this forward, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Larson. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Van Bever, did you?
I did. Really quick.
Go for it.
Thank you. Like many bills brought forward, I want to say something very brief. This is a constituent-born bill. I've had many walks in life, and I've been an employer, an employee, a friend, an acquaintance, a community member, a teacher. And in each of these capacities, my life has always been enriched by somebody in one of these communities, because they often show us what life really looks like when you live it fully. They're individuals who often work harder, love deeply, and show more of an appreciation for life than we do. And many times our gratitude versus their gratitude pales in comparison. So when it comes to the question of the quality of life, it's easy to see that individuals who are affected by this issue deserve objective equal protection under the law, rather than someone's subjective judgment about the worth of a human's capacity. So I ask for an aye vote on House Bill 211169.
Thank you. Rep. Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I just wanted to come up and voice my strong support for this bill as well. It's a great bill. This is definitely something that is often talked about in the IDD community in particular. It does not happen often, but there are some very glaring cases where there have been people, with Down syndrome or other, disabilities that have gone, and doctors have said, why would we give you this organ? Because your quality of life won't be as good as somebody else. Again, it is a rare instance, but I think for this particular case, one is far too many. So this is a great bill, and this brings us in alignment with a lot of other states that already have this protection on the book. Thank you to both the sponsors, and vote yes.
Rep. Young.
I want to thank the sponsors for highlighting the importance of transplant. As many of you probably know, my sister-in-law is celebrating her 20th anniversary of her liver transplant that occurred with the transplantee at UC Health at Anschutz. And they have worked tirelessly over the years to maintain her health. We encountered no discrimination at that time. And I'm happy that we're highlighting the importance of accessibility, and I'm sure this bill will support the ongoing work of the transplant team and the Donor Alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations to your sister. Any further discussion on House Bill 1169? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1169. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1190.
House Bill 1190 by Representatives Rich and Escar concerning the definition of telemedicine for the purposes of the Colorado Medical Practice Act.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move House Bill 211190 and the committee report.
To the committee report, Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the committee, we ran an amendment to make sure that we heard from all of our stakeholders and wanted to make sure that we made sure all of the technology we used was HIPAA compliant when we talked about this bill. We ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the health and insurance report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report passes. Back to the bill. Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is about clarifying the term telemedicine, and it will update Colorado's definition of telemedicine so that providers working toward platforms that would deliver telemedicine is in a synchronous manner, and they can be compliant with Colorado law, and I'm asking for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1190? Seeing none, question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1190. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1190 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1188.
House Bill 1188 by Representative Kennedy, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning additional liability of a defendant who admits liability under Respondent Superior.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1188.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a bill that corrects what we believe was a misinterpretation by the state Supreme Court in a decision they made in 2017, and ensures that an employer will not be able to hide behind their employees or independent contractors to shield themselves from responsibility. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1188? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1188. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 1188 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 73.
Senate Bill 73 by Senators Danielson and Quorum, also Representatives Michelson, Janae, and Soper, concerning changing the statute of limitations applicable to civil actions alleging sexual misconduct for which the statute of limitations has not yet run as of January 1, 2022.
Representative Michelson, Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
I move Senate Bill 73 and the committee report.
To the committee report, Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the House Judiciary Committee, we made two minor amendments, but they made the bill a whole lot better. We wanted to make sure that we didn't catch up things like streaking across a college campus as being something that could have an unlimited statute of limitations if someone viewed that as being sexual assault in any way. So we just wanted to be very clear. So we found a way to do that by cutting it off at felonies or above from the criminal side of the equation if you're going to make a civil complaint.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the judiciary report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The judiciary report passes. Back to the bill. Representative Michelson, Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill 26 years in the making, and we had a historic passage out of Judiciary Committee just this week or last week?
This week.
It was just this week. And we are in a point where we can finally look at survivors of sexual assault and say we are protecting you and giving you the opportunity to heal in the time that you need to heal and be made whole in the time that you are ready to be made whole. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if you remember this, members, but think back to when we had gone in recess for the COVID pandemic, and we came back. Representative Michelson, Janae, and I were standing in this very spot, and the first words I said at that moment in time was, "You're about to vote on a very historic bill." Well, you're about to vote on a very historic bill again, because 1296, which was last year's version, ended up dying in the Senate. This year it's Senate Bill 73. There's some very minor tweaks that actually improved from what we had last year. But as Representative Michelson Janae said, this is 26 years in the making. The ability to give rape and sexual assault victims the ability to make their case in court when they're able to tell their story. One thing we've heard time and time again is that rape and sexual assault victims are in their mid-50s when they're first able to share the story of their experiences. And I would rather have an attorney tell a client that there's not enough evidence than to have a statute of limitations tell the victim, "I'm sorry, you're not able to make your case, even if there is good evidence." Statute of limitations are often used as a tool to defeat claims of childhood and adult sexual assault. By eliminating the statute of limitations, it prohibits perpetrators from continuing to evade legal consequences simply because arbitrary time has expired. I would ask for a yes vote on this very historic bill. Thank you.
Representative Benavides and then Buckenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the sponsors for really working on this bill. Some of you may recall I was the lone no on this vote last year in our chamber because I thought the bill was too broad to remove the statute of limitations for all of the crimes with regard to sexual misconduct. And the sponsors did work on that, and then we did do amendments in committee that really made it only applicable to, as they said, rape, sexual assault, the very more serious felony crimes, and a misdemeanor one against a child. So I think this puts us in line with some of the states that have moved forward on these kinds of measures. So we're not truly the only state out there like we would have been. So with those changes, and I want to applaud the sponsors for their willingness to continue to work on this measure, that hearing the testimony, because it is difficult for the victims, and many victims who were assaulted as children, and to come and share their stories and the time for them to come forward is really, if you don't know this, I'm sure you can look it up, it's really devastating in their lives. So I think this is a good move forward for our state. So I'm supportive of the bill.
Representative Buckenfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, it's an honor to serve with you.
Thank you. Also to serve with you, Representative.
Folks, if I could have your attention, because I think this is a very important element. I voted no against this bill in committee, not because I don't like the bill, but the bill has a major flaw, in my opinion. And the reason that is that in this particular bill, Madam Chairman, I think this is important. Could I have quiet?
Members, can you take the conversations off the floor? Can we have attention down to the well? Go ahead and proceed, Representative.
This bill has a major flaw that I think needs to be corrected and amended. And what that is that if a deceased person has an estate and there's no statute of limitations, their survivors have to defend that person who's unable to defend themselves against any accusations made against them. And this needs to be fixed in this bill. A dead person cannot defend themselves. So there's several ways that this could be fixed. The burden of proof in this bill is beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm sorry, correction. the preponderance of evidence. It's not the beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's the weakest standard that you have in order to obtain a judgment against the deceased person's estate who has the inability to defend themselves. And their spouse is going to have to try to defend them on something that may have even happened prior, years ago, 30 or 40 years ago, before you were married or before your children were even born. They're going to be put in a position where they have to try to defend something that happened that long ago because there's no statute of limitations. I would ask that the sponsors of this bill work on this particular issue and make an amendment to this bill to keep the process fair. It's not fair when someone cannot defend themselves against an accusation that may or may not be true. And it's not fair that your survivors and spouses and children have to defend something that may or may not be true before they're even aware that an issue could have existed. So again, if this bill's not amended, I ask you to vote no. If we can get this amendment, I think it's a great bill. Thank you very much.
Rep. Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak to two aspects here. I do believe the point that my colleague from Arapahoe County brought up is an important point, and what I want to emphasize is that the answer is provided for in existing law. There are provisions in, and Madam Chair, I'm going to ask for some quiet in this chamber.
Members, just take a second. Thank you very much. Please proceed, Representative Weissman.
There is language in our probate law. It's been a few days since I looked at this, so don't quote me, but I think it's 1512 Part 8, that sets forth time limits on the way in which claims may be brought by creditors broadly, not just litigation creditors. It could be a bank, a credit card company, anybody, against an estate. That's because the law wants these things to be dealt with expeditiously. An estate is not going to hang around undistributed for a long time. At least it shouldn't. It's going to be handled according to the will, or it's going to be handled according to provisions for intestacy in the absence of a will. There are provisions about publication of notice, and there's pretty much an outer bound of 1 year. So as to the ability of claims to be brought against an estate, existing law provides for a time limitation on these types of claims that might arise out of these civil actions, just as it provides for limitations on any other kind of claim a creditor might bring, and with sound reason. So I do not believe that amendment is necessary, and were there to be an amendment, it would amount to there being less recourse for folks we're talking about in this bill than other creditors, much more sort of mundane types of creditors, banks, credit card companies, people who have experienced far less than this would have. So I do not believe that any amendment is necessary. And further, just to clarify some of my colleagues' points, there's nothing in this bill about joint and several liability. We're not talking about claims being brought against a spouse, against children, individually. The law that I'm talking about provides the time bound for proceeding against an estate, if there even is one. Nothing we talked about all night, nothing in the bill is about responsibility of other individuals who themselves have committed no wrong. And Madam Chair, while I'm up here, I think I wanted to just say a little bit about the underlying bill, and I appreciate the sponsors for bringing it. Members, we hear a lot of hard stuff in judiciary. Probably a lot of harder testimony than what you typically hear in a lot of other committees. And I got to say, the other night was one of the hardest nights that we've had to hear in my 4.5 years on Judiciary Committee in this place, and 2.5 years of chairing it. We finished work after 9 It's probably 10 o'clock by the time I got home, 11 o'clock by the time I even tried to sleep, midnight by the time I fell asleep, and I got up before 4 in the morning because the weight of what we heard was on me that much. But it's not even about me, and it's not about us on this committee. We were the lucky ones. We get to sit in this place. Those things that happened did not happen to us. The things we heard about, the things that made grown witnesses cry and scream years and decades after they happened, did not happen to us. No, we're the lucky ones because we get to sit in here in these chairs and be part of providing a solution. Finally saying, no, we're not going to slam the doors to the courthouse of justice in some arbitrary way to people who have suffered these hideous things. To the comments that my colleague made, the burden is still the preponderance. Like in any civil action, the burden is on the plaintiff, if they even are able to come forward. The preponderance standard applies like it does in any civil action. The rules of evidence still apply. Relevance, hearsay, authentication of records, all of it. Frankly, it's going to be difficult for one of these claims to be brought with this much passage of time. But the judgment of this bill is that these situations are different, particularly in the context of institutional cover-up, which we know is part of what's been happening out there. And that because these situations are different, it is appropriate that we depart from the usual rule of a statute of limitations. It is appropriate that we hold open at least the opportunity to be heard in a court and to get a little bit of justice. And because this bill is prospective only, the folks that we heard from the other night, this isn't even about them. But there is a community of people who have survived these horrors out there. And they come forward to this building year after year after year. And they may not be able to be made whole in their own lives, but they are at least trying to help others be made whole down the road. And in providing healing for others, maybe achieve some healing for themselves. So that is what we're talking about here. And I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Balkenfeld.
Thank you. My colleague's right. Sitting through that hearing the other night brings tears to your eyes. It hurts your heart. But we have a justice system in this country. And when things are not just, the Lady of Justice has tears in her eyes. We have to make sure there's an element of fairness. Everything that my colleague explained to you about creditors being able to make claims on estates are well-documented transactions. It's not someone who's making a claim 40 or 50 years later that has to be defended by your heirs or whoever you leave your assets to until they get through probate. They have to defend that. And even if that accusation is accurate or inaccurate, you're probably going to have to hire an attorney that's going to cost your estate a lot of money to defend. This portion of this bill needs to be repaired. A dead man cannot defend himself. And I say man in the terms of man and woman, but they cannot defend themselves. And we need to keep that in consideration because the lowest standard of proof is the preponderance of evidence. I think we can make it maybe, if someone is deceased, clear and concise evidence and not beyond a reasonable doubt. We already have criminal laws, if a person is alive, that they can be prosecuted with no statute of limitations for this kind of crime. But it's a matter of fairness, and I think this is where we sit as a jury about our justice system. Do we have a balanced justice system? And we have to keep that balance. So again, unless this bill is amended, I ask you to oppose the bill.
Any further discussion? Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, members. I really appreciate your listening to the important dialogue and debate that truly has been going on 26 years around this bill. Every part of the conversation is important. Members, I was 7 years old when I was first sexually assaulted. I was lured away from the playground where I was supposed to be taking care of my little brothers. I don't remember enough. I remember she had dark hair. I remember she lived in apartment 6C. I remember what she used on me, but I don't remember anywhere near enough details to bring forward anything that would be able to protect me. And my statute of limitations has run out, so this doesn't help me at all. I was 14 when I was raped. And I remember every single moment. And unfortunately, my rapist haunts me in ways that probably couldn't have happened before Facebook, because his brother was my good friend. And I have seen my rapist enter the Marine Corps, where my own son serves, and not able to balance, how could a rapist be in such an honorable position, one that I'm so proud of my son for taking on? These experiences are not one episode and done. They are with you your whole life. And I don't need to tell the members of the Judiciary Committee, because they've heard it year after year. Your whole life. We are at once finally saying, you know what? We believe you. And to the extent of the law, where the law still protects others, we will be able to come after you when the time is right. I was 38 before I told my mother about what happened when I was 7. That's actually early. My rape, I came home and had a breakdown right there on the floor. I can still visualize myself in fetal position behind the couch, between the couch and the wall. And I thought my life was over. I'm an Orthodox Jewish woman. Nobody's going to marry me now. I was done. I was defiled. I was ruined. I was ashamed to my family. That sticks with you your whole life. It doesn't go away. Here, with this legislation, we say, I stand with you, and I trust you, and I believe in you, and I will try our best to protect you and make you whole. Members, please vote yes, like you did last year almost unanimously on this bill.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 73? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also just like to encourage the members to vote yes, and thank you, Representative Michelson Janae, for fighting this fight. I look forward to getting this to the governor's desk.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, question for us is the adoption of Senate Bill 73. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 73 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1119.
House Bill 1119 by Representatives Rich and Doherty, also Senators Donovan and Quorum, concerning lowering the suicide rate by enhancing care for persons affected by suicide, and in connection therewith, broadening Colorado's focus to include suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1119 and the committee report.
To the committee report, Representative Doherty.
Yes, and then there was a strike through, which is what we were referring to in the committee report. And Madam Chair, may I talk about the strike through?
Or you have an amendment?
Do you have an amendment to the committee report?
Yes, Madam Chair. I also have an amendment.
So let's move the amendment to the committee report first.
I move Amendment L004 to the committee report. And I ask that it be displayed.
Great job. All right, Amendment L004 has been moved and is properly displayed. Why don't you talk about L004 now?
L004 just clarifies that our intent was to train high school students, which is why we struck the 6th grade through line.
Any further discussion on Amendment L004 to the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L004 to the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Back to the committee report. Representative Doherty.
Madam Chair, what this bill does is it strengthens the resource bank at the Department of Education, which provides comprehensive suicide prevention and mental health materials that are based off of evidence and research. The bill increases the resources available to primary care physicians and how to identify and respond to a suicidal patient, and expands the scope of the grant program within the Office of Suicide Prevention that provides resources to local school districts.
Okay, and I think we're speaking about the bill now, am I right? So let's pass the committee report, or it is the bill? Oh, my apologies. Understood. Okay. Representative Rich, anything else to add? Go ahead.
Are we on the bill?
On the committee report,
On the committee
which is the
report,
bill.
I'll wait for the bill. She pretty much.
Who's on first?
Okay. Well, the committee report was our strike below. And so it's about, we can talk about it, but it's the bill.
Great.
Okay. All right. We did a strike below so that this bill would offer resources for not only the primary care physicians, but also our high schools, and it will increase the resources available for primary care physicians. The component is critical because PCPs are in a critically unique position to intervene with suicide patients. And finally, this strike below expands the scope of the grant program within the Office of Suicide Prevention that provides resources to local school districts.
Thank you. The question before us is the adoption of the committee report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The committee report passes. Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so that you know, this bill is about lowering the suicide rate by enhancing care for persons affected by suicide. People who know someone who died by suicide in the last year were 1.6 times more likely to have suicide thoughts, 2.9 times more likely to have a plan for suicide themselves, and 3.7 times more likely to have attempted suicide themselves. Suicide is the leading cause of death of school-aged children in Colorado. A survey by the Suicide Prevention Commission found that behavioral health providers have gaps in knowledge about evidence-based practices and training related to comprehensive suicide prevention, and that those providers generally reported that they would benefit from additional training. Sadly, Colorado has one of the highest rates of youth suicide in the country. This bill isn't the end-all, be-all solution to this problem, but it does make important changes that will likely have a positive impact to save lives. I'm asking for an aye vote.
Representative Amabile.
Thank you. So I wanted to speak to this bill today because I wanted to just make the point of why it is so important that we try to prevent suicide. Because suicide is a final solution to what very likely was a short-term problem. And so I'm going to read this poem by Maggie Royer, and it's called The Morning After I Killed Myself. The morning after I killed myself, I woke up. I made myself breakfast in bed. I added salt and pepper to my eggs and used my toast for a cheese and bacon sandwich. The morning after I killed myself, I fell in love with my brother, who once believed in unicorns, but who now sat in his desk at school trying desperately to believe I still existed. The morning after I killed myself, I walked the dog. I saw the empty space in her eyes when she reached a stick and turned to greet me so we could play catch, but saw nothing but sky in my place. I picked a few daylilies and pulled a few weeds and watched the elderly woman through her window as she read the paper with the news of my death. The morning after I killed myself, I watched the sun come up. Each orange tree opened like a hand, and the kid down the street pointed out a single red cloud to his mother. The morning after I killed myself, I went back to that body in the morgue, and I tried to talk some sense into her. I told her about the avocados and the stepping stones, the river and her parents. I told her about the sunsets and the dog and the beach. The morning after I killed myself, I tried to unkill myself, but I couldn't. I urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1119? Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
An honor to serve with you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate this bill, and I thank you folks for bringing it forward. This seems to be a pandemic in our state. We don't call it that. But kids, young people feeling that there was no other way is one of the saddest things I can think about. In my district, we do have serious problems. You know, it seems like when we lose hope or it's taken from us, there's no other answer. What I'm hoping is that if we can increase the support, talking with people so that somebody doesn't follow up, we may save someone. And you know, that person we save may be one of the people that could save this world with a new idea, with a new attitude. Somebody who's come that close and realizes the value of that sunrise that was talked about in that poem. I have no idea how to go about fixing it, but I'm going to be a yes on this bill because it's something we can do. I'm not man enough to figure out what to do to help, but I will be one of the people that'll vote yes to try and get that help. This is not the worst world that a guy could think of. And we need to be able to reach those young people so that they don't believe this is the worst place they could be. Maybe we can find hope with them. Maybe we can give them hope. Maybe they realize that they're not stuck right where they are. And this is an opportunity for us to reach into the schools where they probably trust the people they're talking to. So, thank you very much for bringing this. This is an opportunity for us to start helping. Vote yes.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I shouldn't be here today, but I am. Back in 2004, I just about took my life. And I've never come up here and spoke about it. And this week in Bible study, I did mention 2 others about it, because it's something that carries with me every single day. making the right choices. But I have to thank my family, my faith. Thank God that I'm here. Thank my brother for my cousins, because it's not easy, and we need to talk more about it. Because in 2019, I lost 3 of my good friends. And it's a situation, as Representative Catlin says, it's a pandemic that continues on, and we need to make sure that nobody goes through that. And it's a coward's way out of life, because life is beautiful. As Representative Annabelle Amabile was talking earlier, the day after. Talking with your family and how important it is of the issues that are happening. You know, if you see somebody going through a bad day, say hello to them. Say hi to them. No matter what. If you see somebody, we don't know their story, we haven't walked in their shoes or their boots, as we walk in boots here in Colorado. But everybody has a story, and it's a beautiful story. As we need to all just listen and be mentors and be the better person, but also we need to continue to uplift everybody. So with the bill sponsors, you have my support on this. Thank you.
Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this forward. My first experience in suicide was at the ripe old grade school age of 4th grade, when my best friend's brother committed suicide. Living across the street from our family members, I remember thinking on the school bus ride that morning, why did any of us not have any idea that he had no hope and that he believed this was his only way out? Were we not good enough friends? Did we not care enough? There's always a lot of questions left behind. And then fast forward, as an educator, there's nothing more difficult, I think, in life than walking a student body through the process of grieving for their peers or one of their classmates who's decided to take their own life. It is an epidemic. But I agree with many of the people that have spoken here today. Life is beautiful, and it is full of hope. I have a dear friend who has an acquaintance whose daughter committed suicide. And she runs a nonprofit, and in that nonprofit, she just came out with a T-shirt. And I loved the message on it, so I'm going to give that message to you today in the hopes that you will use it over and over and over again to give those around us hope, to let that person know in the depths of their despair about their existence that you care. It is the only way to stop this. We must let our youth know we are here for them. And the message was this: I will talk to you tomorrow. So when you see that person that you worry about, you know they're struggling, you know their mental state, they're sad, they're angry, they're mad, they're frustrated. Don't question the intention or even the outcome, but make sure you look them squarely in the eyes and with all your heart say, I will talk to you tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow. Make tomorrow their hope that the next day is a place where you want them to be. So thank you for this bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Holtorf, then Sullivan, then Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Esteemed colleagues, I am very happy to see this bill before us. I will tell you this hits home with me and is very raw. As early this week, my good friend and high school history teacher in Otis, Colorado at the Otis High School sent me a text, which I'm going to read. Richard, we have a youth suicide that was committed in our school, and now our school is devastated. He did it this morning. His name is Damien Agason. He was a 7th grader. I'm sure you know him. Seriously, he was one of my favorite students. One of my favorite students ever. And now he is gone. This is truly heartbreaking. And it is truly heartbreaking. Because I would say, ladies and gentlemen, and this bill is a step in the right direction, but I will tell you that we are not doing enough, and this is my plea. We don't do enough, particularly in this time, to reach out to others in our schools, in our youth organizations, in our communities. And I'll tell you, the most critical age demographic, in my humble opinion, is in middle school and high school. From about 12 to 17 or 18. That 5-year period, my mother calls it going through the tunnel. And every kid goes through the tunnel. And she always says, my only prayer is they get out the other side of the tunnel. And not all kids do. In this particular demographic, which is our teen and our youth and our teens, we have to do more of what this bill does. We have to address outreach. We have to address counseling, mental health counseling, psychological counseling. We have to reinforce and build more capacity in this area. So much tragedy comes from mental health illness, including the shootings that this state has experienced. And we don't reach out and grab these people and help them at the critical time and place they need that help. And then we lose them or we lose others because of that. So I would ask that all of us vote yes on this bill. And then we dig even deeper. We dig even deeper. Because I'm telling you, I want to grab the shovel and dig a 20-foot hole. And we're only at about 5 right now. We have to do more. Thank you very much. Please sit down. Thank you very much. Thank you, both sponsors. But let's do more. Let's do more to prevent suicides. Let's build more capacity in our schools, in our communities. Let's change the attitude of mental health issues. And let's reach out to those folks before they harm themselves or they harm others. This is the real challenge that we face. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for bringing this forward.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've told many stories about being in those rooms with the parents, and some of the difficult ones are the parents of kids and husbands and wives who've taken their own lives because they have that feeling that there was something they could do or something they didn't do hard enough or work enough on. The one I want to talk about, after the theater massacre, we've had several of the survivors from that who have taken their lives over the years. And one of them was Alex's friend, one of the bartenders from the Red Robin. She was a couple of seats down from Alex, and from the shots, she had 2 fingers blown off of her hand. She had pellets in her body. She was hospitalized for quite some time. But I will never forget the image when we were at Alex's funeral, and Terry and I were sitting there. They brought her in a wheelchair. She was all wrapped up, and she had said, there isn't anything that was going to stop me from coming to Sully's funeral. And she had such strength at that time. She was going to fight through all of this. And the years after just succumbed to whatever the demons are that are out there and the inability to see that there's a brighter future ahead of her. And she eventually took her own life, and Terry and I had to go to that funeral, and there we were once again, sitting with the kids from Red Robin, trying to understand what's happening and what we can do about this. So certainly anything I can do, any action that we can take, we've got to get working on it. And I think one of the things is to be able to talk about it, to let people know, that we're vulnerable. I mean, I'm vulnerable. This is not an easy place for a victim of a mass shooting to come to work to every single day. I've got to tell you. I mean, it's just not easy. But what you do matters, because there's people out there. I mean, and I'm one of the functioning ones, for goodness sakes. Okay? There's the others, like Alex's friends who have all of those problems and are working through them. So I know how strong, I have to stay for all of them, and got to remind everybody that we have more to do. We need to keep working on this, and certainly I'm a yes on this, and I would hope everybody else is as well. Thank you.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we all have a story, and I'm going to tell one briefly about a young man named Jay who took his life and worked in this building. He worked for myself and Representative Sullivan. And it will be greatly missed. I'd also encourage everybody, if you want to know what leads to suicide, to talk to a doctor about what depression is. Depression that leads to suicide isn't somebody not seeing the beauty in life. Jay saw the beauty in life. It's not somebody who is a coward. Jay was not a coward. He was brave. I watched his bravery. Depression that leads to suicide isn't somebody who just has problems that other people don't have. Depression that leads to suicide is a medical condition. It is a medical condition. And we can all talk about what leads to suicide exactly as well as we can talk about what leads to cancer. And we need to talk about it that way. We need to talk about mental health the way we talk about physical health. And if we don't feel like, if you're someone who doesn't feel like you could come down and explain the epidemiology of cancer, then don't feel like you can explain the epidemiology of depression that leads to suicide. Because it's okay to not understand that, but the ways we talk about it are very different. We don't talk about people who get cancer the same way we've talked about people down here at this well today. And they are no more to blame for where they wind up. They are not a failure in any way more than anybody who gets a tumor. And we talk about mental health parity a lot, but mental health parity is a euphemism. What we need to do is treat it like that, including ourselves. And we should not talk about people who experience depression that leads to suicide any differently than we talk about somebody who has heart disease or gets cancer. And once we get there, then we can start talking about mental health parity, that word, we can use that phrase. But we don't know, nobody in this room knows any better about what leads people to this place than they know about how to be a physician. Like, Yadira knows some things. We have a doctor here, but it's important. I'm not saying don't reach out to your family. I'm not saying don't reach out to your friends. I'm not saying don't provide emotional support. I'm saying we don't know, those of us who are not doctors can't describe depression that leads to suicide better than we can describe other things. And for all of those who have lost loved ones, for that, we should talk about it in the same terms. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Question 4 is the adoption. Oh, Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to say it was an honor to serve with you till you skipped me. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
I'm not real good about coming down and telling stories, but I just want to say I support this bill. I think this kind of work is the most important work we can do here. Absolutely, bar none, the most important work we can do in this chamber. And we all have stories. It was mentioned, Rep. Valdez, Mobley mentioned, we all have stories. We all have life experiences and stories, some of it tied to suicide and those kind of things. The mental health part of that is we got to get rid of that stigma with mental health. Representative Gray spoke about it, but we have to get rid of that stigma. And I really like this bill about in the public schools about train the trainer. I really do. That's great. But I want everyone to know and everyone to hear that you don't have to be a trained psychologist to help people that are struggling. Each and every one of us have that ability. So when you go about your day, it was said, say hello, be friendly. That's how you do it. And if you see someone struggling, be a little extra about it, because we're all therapists in our own way. And I just say reach out to those, because sometimes it's really hard to identify. Rep. Gray talked about, being a coward. It's not a coward. I understand that. It's sometimes it's a instantaneous thing. A lot of times, with depression, a lot of times it's exacerbated with alcohol and those type of things. And so when you see someone struggling, please reach out. I couldn't support this bill anymore, so thank you to the sponsors.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1119? Seeing none, the question for us is the adoption of House Bill 1119. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 1119 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1146.
House Bill 1146 by Representatives Pico and Valdez D., also Senators Zenzinger and Woodward, concerning the practice of auricular occudetox by a professional and in connection therewith, clarifying that in order to perform auricular occudetox, a person does not need to be licensed, certified, or registered as a mental health professional.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move House Bill 1146, and there's no committee report.
Thank you. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is a good bill on ocular occudetox. This helps. It's a technical aspect that we are fixing in this bill, a technical grammatical error. So with that, I appreciate support. 1146.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, as pointed out, is acupuncture focused on detox. We could talk a while about it, but I'll sharpen the discussion and get to the point and say it's a good bill. Oh, yes.
I almost gavelled you. Any further discussion on House Bill 1146? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1146. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. House Bill 1146 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1151.
House Bill 1151 by Representatives McLaughlin and Catlin, also Senator Quorum, concerning allowing a federally recognized Indian tribe to certify its own foster homes.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
Oh, it's an honor to serve with you.
Thank you. Yes, I move House Bill 211151, and there is no committee report.
Thank you, Representative. Back to the bill.
Okay. Yes, Representative Catlin and I'm very happy to serve with him on this bill. We are the only two representatives who represent federally recognized Indian tribes in Colorado. So we have brought this bill together to serve what we believe they are asking for. Historically, the tribes have always been a little afraid to speak with social services, community services, things like that in the counties. And so not many tribal families are registered to be, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say, sorry about that, to do foster home training, I'm sorry. And so this bill addresses the fact that only 4% of Indian children are being placed in Indian homes for this service. And this bill says or asks that we give them the ability to train themselves, to work with all federal, state rules, and to design their own line of foster home care.
Any further discussion? Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is going to It allows the tribes to discuss in government to government with the federal government in regards to them being able to create their own foster homes. That's the legal part. You know, when you come to Denver and you get the chance to be a state representative, you think, man, I'm going to do something. I want to make a difference. I want to find something that needs fixed. Well, that's what happened with this bill. The tribes have never really been able to institute the opportunity to have their own foster homes on the reservation. County government, state government, federal government, everybody's government was getting in the road. It takes just a few words to do this. Representative McLaughlin and I realized and were brought to the idea that there were just a few words that needed to be fixed. So we've done that. But here's the other thing about this. As you sit outside and you watch what's going on around the world and around yourself, you think, man, wow, why did that not get fixed? Maybe it was an oversight, but since the 70s or so, we haven't been able to have foster homes on the reservation. And we've talked about a lot of emotional things here today. But one of the things that was bothering me about what had happened is there's no tougher time period in a family's life or in a kid's life where they may need to be taken from the home and put in a foster home. Can you imagine how much tougher that would be if you were taken out of your culture and put into a culture at my house? That seemed like it wasn't right. So this bill will allow young people to stay in their culture while their families are suffering through a very tough period of time. It's another one of those opportunities that you and I get to possibly help one young person with a better opportunity to do something important in their lives, because we don't separate them from their culture now. I think that's important. I think those are the kind of things we should search for. Luckily, this came to me, and it came to Representative McLaughlin. You've heard me say this is a good bill, vote yes. And tonight and this afternoon, that's really true. This is a good bill. Vote yes.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1151? Seeing none, the question for us is the adoption of House Bill 1151. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Bill passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1019.
House Bill 1019 by Representative Hooton, also Senator Janal, concerning modifications to the regulations of factory-built structures.
Representative Hooton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 211019.
And I think there's a committee report as well, Representative Hooton. Let's start there. If you move that.
Oh, I apologize, yes. Madam Chair, I move the committee report to House Bill 211019.
Thank you. To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee report's actually a strike below. What this bill does essentially is it clarifies who has jurisdiction over the installation of mobile homes in communities. It also addresses manufacturing requirements. It also addresses financial requirements, and a good part of that involves removing some of the financial requirements that were non-starters for people seeking to purchase a manufactured home in Colorado. It is a cleanup bill. It cleans up the statute that addresses manufactured homes. We did, during the Great Recession, because our laws are so confusing and conflicting, we did lose all of our mobile home manufacturers to states adjacent to us, frankly. and we are trying to bring them back by making it easier for them to operate in Colorado, and clarifying jurisdictions is a big part of that, making it easier for people to buy a new mobile home or a used mobile home. I'm sure that's not how we refer to it, but for lack of better definition. So this is essentially what the bill does.
Thank you, Representative. Question for us is the adoption of the committee report. Seeing no further discussion on the committee report, all those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The committee report passes. Representative Hooton, anything further on House Bill 1019?
No, Madam Chair.
The question for us is the passage of House Bill 1019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1019 passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1115.
House Bill 1115 by Representatives Kipp and Mullica, also Senators Janal and Priola, concerning the regulation of members of boards of health and in connection therewith regulating the members of county and district boards of health.
Representative Kipp.
I move HB 21-1115 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
The committee report was a strike below, which basically took out basically everything that everybody was objecting to in the bill, and left it to be a training bill. So now members of public health boards will be trained on an annual basis or get some continuing education. It also says that the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment will offer assistance, if asked, in recruiting public health board members. So it's really, I think, hopefully a fairly non-controversial bill right now, and would be happy to talk more with folks on that.
Representative Mullica. I almost forgot.
We can go to the committee report, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Representative Sandridge, did you want to? It's a strike below. Okay. Representative Pelton.
On the committee report? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, bill sponsors, for all the work, all the changes you've done. My question is, or I guess maybe a suggestion, in this training for some of us rural counties that are a long ways out, is that going to be something that can be done like online or something not very onerous?
Representative Kipp.
Yes, so we said in the bill that we would like the training to be developed by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment in conjunction with the Colorado School of Public Health. And the Colorado School of Public Health has a number of federally funded, so the federal government pays for it, trainings that they are able to develop on and deliver on online platforms. So I would expect that would be available all online.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question for us is the adoption of the Transportation and Local Government Report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The report passes. Back to the bill. Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Representative Kipp for the amount of work that she's done. Really, the goal of this, members, was to try to figure out how we could take politics out of public health as much as we can. And I think we've got to a good spot. I mean, I think it's still something that we need to be looking at. But with this bill, essentially, what we're doing now is ensuring that that our public health boards have annual training to make sure they're up to date on all policies and any issues that may arise, as well as making sure that they have access to resources, specifically to our more rural, smaller counties, so that we can ensure that public health is a priority and it's treated that way.
Representative Kipp.
And yeah, so I just want to let you all know, a lot of the county commissioners, after we did the strike below in committee, called me and said, thank you for listening to us and our concerns. We really feel this bill is in a good place now. We are all about the training. So I really hope that you're able to get some support on this bill as it is now. I think it's still a step forward, and making sure that everybody has information to work with as we're move forward in this public health arena.
Any further discussion? Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the sponsors of this bill. This was and I got a lot of calls from this from my county commissioners, and they did commend, I actually talked to one of them last night, and they did commend the stakeholding meetings and the communication, the listening, and the negotiation. So, they acted like this is how stakeholding meetings should be, so they commended you both. So I just wanted to put that on record. So, thank you for doing a good job.
Representative Gray.
Representative Sanders just said everything I was going to say, but I wanted to also echo it myself, everything he just said.
Any Representative Van Winkle.
Hey, Madam Chair, and I know that Representative Mullica's wife sits on a board of health and knows this issue very well, as does Representative Mullica and Representative Kipp. And I do appreciate it is a much better bill than the introduced one. I still would urge a no vote, though, because the state has still, I think, no business sticking their nose in the subject matter. So I vote no.
Any further discussion? House Bill 1115. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1115. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1115 passes. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I make the motion, members, just want to give you a heads up. We're not done yet. We're going to rise and report on second reading orders here, and then I will pull up a special orders calendar that I've discussed with both sides of the aisle, just to do a little bit more work. I'm trying to make sure we get all of our work done because I have not announced this officially yet, but next Friday is Good Friday, we will be off. So I'm trying to get as much work done as we can on the calendar. So with that, I move that the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it as under consideration the following attached bills being second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. 10 and 19 is amended, 1092 is amended, 1112 is amended, 1115 is amended, 1119 is amended, 1146, 1151, 1169, 1188, 1190 is amended, 1193 passed on second reading and ordered and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 26 is amended, Senate Bill 73 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Tipper. You have heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative Froelich, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Froelich votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote? Sorry, I heard you, we didn't hear you say it. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Thank you. Please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excuse, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, please read reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1011 be amended as follows, be so amended, be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1013 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1044 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1087 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1121 be referred to the committee of the whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1180 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Business Affairs and Labor, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1051 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1163 be referred favorably to the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1199 be postponed indefinitely. Committee on Education, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1010 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1104 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred favorably to the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1200 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Committee on Energy and Environment, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following. House Bill 1189 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 12 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
While we are here, Mr. Gregorio, please read the printing report. The printing report will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Senate.
Mr.
Message
Speaker.
from the Senate will definitely be printed in the Journal. Message from the Reviser.
We herewith
Message from the Reviser will be printed in the Journal. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders at 11:47 a.m. on March 26th. House Bill 1011, House Bill 1013, House Bill 1044, House Bill 1087, House Bill 1180.
See no objection. Those bills will be made special orders on Friday, March 26th at 11:47 a.m. Representative Cutter. See no objection. Representative Cutter will take the chair.
Okay, the committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the court rule is relaxed. All right, so then I'm going to start. Okay, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move 1 second. Proceed out of order. Thank you. I move to proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of House Bill 1180. At the bill sponsor's request.
Seeing no objection, we'll proceed out of order for House Bill 1180. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title.
House Bill 1180 by Representatives Valdez D. and Will, also Senator Quorum, concerning measures to increase biomass utilization throughout the state.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1180, and there is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not only a good bill, but applying biochar and utilizing our biomass in our forests for our soils, our water, our health. Our watersheds are so critical right now, and making sure that we're continuing to utilize the biomass before it gets carbon in the air. And with that, I ask for your support on House Bill 1180.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to further those comments, this is a really good bill, and I think it has potential, especially into the future, using the biomass and the biochar. It has implications in carbon storage, carbon sequestration, so much to do with agriculture, improving soil health. So it's just the tip of the iceberg, and we're moving into this, and I think it's going to be, with this study, we're just going to learn more and more and identify more environmental and economic benefits to increase biomass supply. It also plays into our most recent forest fires and all the things we've been having going on last summer in the state of Colorado. So this is a good bill and a good way to get things kick-started.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1180. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bill is passed. Okay. Mr. Gregorio, please read the bill, HB 211011.
House Bill 1011 by Representative Caraveo, also Senators Gonzalez and Moreno, concerning the expansion of multilingual ballot access for electors in the state.
Representative Caraveo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1011 and the Appropriations and State Affairs Committee report.
Okay, to the report.
The Appropriations report made an appropriation. I ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Seeing none, members, please vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is passed. The appropriations report is passed. Representative Caraveo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The State Affairs Committee, we amended the bill to change the languages covered by the hotline and change the dates and times that the hotline will take effect. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the state adopting the state affairs report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the report from State, Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs is passed. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is hopefully third time as the charm on this bill. Really what we're doing is enfranchising 82,000 voters who have gone through all the right steps. Our citizens are eligible to vote but may not understand our complicated bill language in Colorado that we have under our voting requirements, and gives certain counties the requirement to make translation available for those people. I ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few questions because when I was the county clerk, there were counties that offered multilingual ballots, and now there's going to be a hotline. But how many counties how many counties came to you and said they needed this?
Representative Carabeo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Rich, for the question. Currently, there are only 4 counties in Colorado that do this, the biggest of which is Denver, and Denver has actually taken the step to offer additional languages other than what is required under the Voting Rights Act. With this bill, we were really trying to tailor it so that more people would be enfranchised, but we weren't going to require the entire state to do this, so we will go to 22 counties after this.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 22 counties, and did they ask for this?
Representative Carabeo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Rich. This was really from constituents who I have met with and spoken to in the course of being an elected official. They are the ones that asked for this.
Representative Rich.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Constituents in all 22 counties?
Yes, Representative Carabeo.
Thank you, Representative Rich. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have groups, coalition members, advocacy groups that have, I've spoken to voters from all across the state who have said, I really want to better understand the things that I'm voting on. Right now, the level of English that I can, speak to have a, regular life is not to the level that a ballot language is written at, and I would like the ability to better understand it.
Representative Rich.
I'll just ask one more question because I wasn't in committee. So whenever you have a translator, translation and interpretation are not the same thing. So how is that going to be controlled?
Representative Carabeo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Representative Rich. They will be translators that the Secretary of State has to approve that are culturally competent and certified to offer competent translation and interpretation.
Any further questions? Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Representative Cutter. And for the sponsor, I was just looking through this. I was wondering, is that the only way in which the hotline would facilitate, is just strictly in the interpretation of the language, please?
Representative Carabeo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Geithner. Yes, we have made it explicitly clear that they are only to provide translation services. They are not to interpret ballot issues or offer any advice.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1101. Excuse me. 1011. Oh, 1011, sorry. 1011. Minor details. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1011 is passed. Okay. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1013.
House Bill 1013 by Representatives Snyder and Van Winkle, also Senator Kolker, concerning the division of a domestic stock insurer into multiple resulting domestic stock insurers.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say what a pleasure it is to work with you.
And a pleasure to work with you. Thank you, Representative.
And with that, I'll move House Bill 1013, the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
Oh, to the Appropriations report.
Kevin, you want to do that?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It makes an appropriation.
Representative Snyder.
Yeah, actually, they did approve our appropriations for the first year of the programs in full.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the appropriations report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The appropriations report passes. To the, to the Business Affairs and Labor report. Representative Snyder.
So actually, this bill was one that we brought last year, and it died like so many other bills on the calendar. And so that it allowed us to put a lot of amendments from last year into the bill text itself, and yet we still had an amendment, Business Affairs and Labor. Basically, we had referenced a few times where the reporting and supervision was done by the Secretary of State's office. They're no longer in that business, so we just changed Secretary of State to Commissioner of Insurance in several places in the bill.
Okay. Is there any further, oh, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor Report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is passed. To the bill. Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to my very able co-prime sponsor on this bill. He's done terrific work, actually for 2 years now, on a rather complex issue. But just to break the bill down kind of from the 10,000-foot level, the current process for insurance companies to divest themselves is extremely cumbersome, and this bill seeks to fix that process by simply allowing a domestic stock insurer to divide into 2 or more resulting insurers through a plan of division. It reforms the process, it modernizes it, and makes it easier for everyone.
Representative Snyder.
Yes, and to add to that, the one thing I was concerned all along, and I'm very happy that we have good protections in here to make sure that no particular class of policyholders or anybody who's part of a particular book of assets will be mistreated. So the plan calls for a plan of division to be approved by the insurance commissioner and overseen by that, and because we wanted to remove the fiscal note, now the industry will actually pay for that plan of division and that review by the insurance company. So I'm very proud to say that this bill has all the protections you would want to make sure nobody is being shorted through this process. And with that, I would ask for a yes vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Come on.
Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of House Bill 21-1013. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? House Bill 1013 is passed as amended. Okay, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 21-1044.
House Bill 1044 by Representatives Hooton and Larson, also Senator Bridges, concerning allowing a manufacturer of venous liquors to maintain licensed premises consisting of multiple non-contiguous locations.
Okay, Representative Hooton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move House Bill, what are we? Oh, yes, 1044. The Appropriations Committee report and the Business and Labor Committee report.
Thank you, Representative Hooton. To the Appropriations report.
Madam Chair, the Appropriations report confirms the fiscal note for this bill, and which primarily allows bottlers of wine the ability to expand its operation into locations within a 10-mile radius that are not contiguous to the original location.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations report? Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the Appropriations report. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the Appropriations report is adopted. To the, Business and Affairs Labor report. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Business Affairs and Labor report, we did adopt an amendment. The original language allowed for 5 non-contiguous locations, but in consultation with the industry and the Department of Revenue, we determined that 2 contiguous locations would be better. And this was a unanimous amendment, and I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Nope. Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Business Affairs and Labor report is passed. To the bill. Representative Hooton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill would allow the bottlers of wine the ability to expand their operations as they grow into locations that are not contiguous to the original location. And it's a great bill because it allows a small business to expand, and it removes the obstacle to the current obstacle to that. So I urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we need to take every opportunity to encourage business, especially this business, to produce fine fruit of the grape and appropriately aged and bottled and sat on my shelf for some time. And any vote against this bill, I will take as an affront to my personal interests. Vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Baisley. Any further discussion? If not, the question before us is adoption of House Bill 211044. All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? Okay, the House Bill 1044 is passed. All right, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 211087.
House Bill 1087 by Representatives Doherty and Bradfield, also Senator Danielson, concerning authorizing education support professionals to participate in the Teaching and Learning Conditions Survey.
Okay, Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1087 and the Appropriations Committee report.
Okay, to the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had appropriations this morning, actually, and we received money for our bill.
Thank you, Representative Doherty. Any further discussion?
What else?
Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor, aye? Any opposed? No. The report is passed. To the bill. Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Every 2 years, the Colorado Department of Education does a survey with the certificated staff, and in the doing of this survey, the educational support personnel have requested that they would like to do a survey as well, and that is what this bill is about, is the development of a survey that would be produced by CDE and given to educational support personnel as well on every 2-year basis.
Thank you, Representative Bradfield. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is adoption of House Bill 1087. All those in favor?
Yeah, aye.
Any opposed? Okay, House Bill 1087 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, great work. I move the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
House will come back to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report that it has under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1011 as amended, House Bill 1013 as amended, House Bill 1044 as amended, House Bill 1087 as amended, House Bill 1180 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Cutter. You've heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Arndt, Carver, not Carver, McKean, and Sirota. Please close the machine. With 39 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 3 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee. We're going to start partying at 10 minutes after adjournment in room 112, and we're going to hear 1187 by Representatives Mary Young. Do you have a co-prime? And Representative Pelton.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Moment of personal privilege granted.
Members, our jobs are all very hard. We work very hard at them, but I think we need to recognize from time to time when the way we do our job leads to people acting in ways that could make us unsafe. Sheriff Reams of Weld County, at an event a few days ago, was talking about politics, which we all do all the time. But he used the phrase, "I guarantee you, Leslie Herod down at the state capitol made a name for herself. In my mind, she's a terrorist. She's a terrorist against the citizens of Colorado." That's a problematic and inappropriate statement, but our lives are filled with problematic and inappropriate statements. That happens all the time. Like, you all have Twitter accounts, and if you do, people have said things that are problematic about you. The reason I come down here is because it's also a very dangerous statement. We turn to our law enforcement officials, especially our senior ones, sheriffs and district attorneys and police chiefs. Those of us who are following the events on Monday, we're waiting on their every word, and we've been waiting on their every word every week. There need to be authorities on what makes us safe and what makes us unsafe. And there is no space for people who have that role, that profound responsibility, to call an elected official a terrorist for the kind of legislation that they vote on and that they introduce. There is no space for that. Not just because it's inappropriate, because it's dangerous. Because as we have learned this week and last week and the week before that, sure, most of the people in that room didn't think anything much of it. Sure, most of them didn't. What we've learned in the last week is it takes one. It takes one person to take it seriously. It takes one person to believe it. And we're talking about somebody who works in this building. We're talking about one of our coworkers. We're talking about somebody who we serve with. And it is profoundly inappropriate and profoundly dangerous to use that language when you're supposed to be the person who keeps people safe. It is a profound dereliction of duty to speak that way when you're the person that people turn to for guidance about how to stay safe. To call somebody a terrorist who obviously isn't, it's just a derogatory phrase, but it means something. It triggers some things in people's heads. And again, it takes one to take that from words to action. And the last thing I'll say is, it's more dangerous, and this is just a fact. This isn't a political statement. This is just a fact. It's more dangerous when it's a white man saying that a woman of color is dangerous. It just is. And so it has nothing to do with party, it has nothing to do with anything else like that. But for those of us in any elected official, any elected capacity, but especially those who are charged with giving the public information about who is a danger and who is not a danger, to call anyone in this room a terrorist because of how they conduct their legislative business. And I would hope that we could all, when we go back into our local communities, including myself, I'll do the same, that we can take that message back, that there is no one in this room that I would ever get close to calling a terrorist. And I would never accept from anybody in law enforcement or who's charged with the public trust for saying that about any of you in this room. And I hope that you would all agree that we should all do the same. Thank you very much.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Gray, for your statements. Members, I'm going to be brief, but what I will say is that the attacks against me are untrue, but they're also dangerous. I believe that every single one of us in this body is here because we love our state and we love our country. We are the definition of patriots, in fact. We might not agree on issues, but in fact, a lot of times we actually do. But if I disagree with someone, I don't believe that, I know I would not go to a group of folks who are asking to take the law into their own hands and call you out as someone who should be a target. That is irresponsible and it's dangerous. The person who lobbed these attacks is sworn to serve and protect. And you wonder why I don't feel safe in the presence of certain individuals like that. But I do not believe that all law enforcement feel the same way. In fact, I want to thank members, especially those in this body who are former law enforcement, who have stepped up and said, this is not who we are. And I want to thank law enforcement from across Colorado who have reached out to me to say this is not who we are. I am under real threat now. Those words have sparked something in some people that have put me in the line of danger. I have state troopers who are now at my house on a regular basis, who've had to stay the night in front of my home because the threats are real. And I continue to get them. This is not the first time, but it was so direct from a member of law enforcement and another elected official that we all should be concerned. Should not happen. So I just want to thank State Patrol for responding so quickly. I want to thank my colleagues and friends for responding so quickly. I would hope that we could all do better. And yes, I do want to acknowledge that it is a trend that when women, especially women of color, speak out and speak up, we're getting attacked across this country. My friend Park Cannon was arrested in Georgia, an elected official, for speaking out against something that she didn't agree with. It's got to stop. We've got to respect each other. We just have to respect each other. So I ask that you all think about this, that you think about your words, and that you just don't cross that line of directly inciting violence against anyone, but especially those who we call colleagues in this room. So thank you all for your support. Thank you to law enforcement for your support. I will be clear that I will not be bullied into silence, and I look forward to continuing to fight for issues that matter for all of us. Thank you.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you guys remember the first time I came down here to say this to you all, it was framed in a similar way, insofar as often we find ourselves at the other end of words of death. And so today, especially in light of what was just shared, I think it is even more important for all of us to remember, and I say this to you, Representative Herod, specifically, you are loved. You are amazing. You are worthy and adored. And I can't wait to see you again soon. And to everyone else, the same holds true. Thank you.
All right. Any further announcements and introductions? Seeing Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members, thank you again for your work today to help us clear off some of this calendar. Again, for those of you who may not have been in the room, next Friday is Good Friday. We will not be meeting on next Friday, so that's the reason why we're going to be pushing a lot of work this coming week. Keep that in mind, but if we work hard, we have Friday to look forward to. With that, I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess till later today.